was driving along one dark and stormy night, heading back home from a long day at work. The rain pounded on the windshield, and the road was slick with water. The only source of light was the faint glow of my car's headlights, casting an eerie glow on the wet asphalt. It was the kind of night where you just wanted to get home and forget the world. My mind was preoccupied with the day's events as I navigated the winding road through the dense woods. The only sound was the rain drumming on the roof and the rhythmic swish of the wipers. But then, something strange happened. Up ahead, I saw a figure stumbling along the side of the road, drenched and disheveled. My first instinct was to keep driving. Picking up a hitchhiker in the middle of nowhere, especially on a night like this, was a terrible idea. But as I got closer, I saw the desperation in the person's eyes. I pulled over, and the man practically fell into the passenger seat. He was soaked to the bone, shivering, and his clothes clung to him like a second skin. He looked terrified, and his voice trembled as he spoke. He explained that his car had broken down a few miles back, and he had been walking for what felt like hours. Feeling a pang of guilt, I offered to give him a ride to the nearest gas station. He accepted with a nod, and I hit the gas, eager to get us both out of the relentless rain. As we drove, he began to talk, telling me about his life, his family, and the strange coincidence that had led him to break down on this deserted road. Despite my initial reservations, I found myself engrossed in his story. He was a good storyteller, and his words seemed to fill the car with warmth despite the cold rain outside. We shared laughter and exchanged anecdotes, and for a brief moment, the eerie night seemed less daunting. But as we continued down the desolate road, I began to notice something unsettling. The landscape had changed. The trees that had once lined the road were now twisted and gnarled, and the road itself seemed to stretch on endlessly. My sense of direction was completely disoriented. I glanced at the man, and he was still talking, but his words had turned into an incomprehensible murmur. Panic began to well up inside me. How had we gotten so lost so quickly? I checked my phone, but there was no signal. It was just me, the stranger, and the endless, twisted road. I tried to remain calm, but the situation was becoming increasingly surreal. The man's story had turned dark, and he spoke of strange encounters on this very road, encounters that had driven him to a state of perpetual fear. He spoke of a malevolent presence that lurked in these woods, a force that fed on the fear of those who crossed its path. The rain outside had intensified, now resembling a torrential downpour, and the wind howled through the twisted trees. I felt like a prisoner in my own car, trapped with a man whose story was becoming increasingly chilling. Suddenly, the man stopped talking and turned to me with hollow eyes. "They're here," he whispered. I saw figures moving in the darkness, just beyond the reach of the headlights. Shapes that seemed to flicker and shift like smoke. My heart raced, and I floored the gas pedal, desperate to escape whatever nightmare we had stumbled into. The road continued to twist and turn, the figures in the darkness closing in. The man beside me had fallen silent, his fear palpable. Then, just as suddenly as it had all begun, the road straightened out, and the rain lessened. The figures in the darkness disappeared, and I found myself on a familiar stretch of road. I looked at the man beside me, but he was gone. I pulled over and got out, scanning the area, but there was no sign of him. It was as if he had never been there. My heart pounded in my chest, and I realized that I had narrowly escaped something inexplicable and terrifying. I got back in my car, drenched and trembling, and continued my journey home. The rain had finally stopped, and the night was calm. But the memory of that chilling encounter on the twisted road would haunt me for the rest of my life. It was a nightmarish reminder that sometimes, the darkest horrors are the ones that lurk in the most ordinary of places. I had just finished another late shift at the hospital. The clock on my car's dashboard read 2:30 a.m. as I pulled out of the parking lot. It was a foggy night, and the mist clung to the road, making visibility poor. Tiredness weighed on me, and all I wanted was to get home, crawl into bed, and forget about the day. I had been driving for about 20 minutes when I noticed a pair of headlights in my rearview mirror. They were large and bright, belonging to a massive truck that seemed to be tailgating me. I kept checking my speed, but I was already going the limit. The truck remained dangerously close, its high beams piercing through the fog. My heart started to race as I realized the trucker showed no intention of passing me. Anxiety gnawed at me as I wondered what this person's intentions were. I had heard stories of dangerous drivers on these late-night roads, but I never thought I'd encounter one. The minutes ticked by, and the truck continued to shadow me. I decided to take the next exit, hoping the driver would continue down the highway. But as I signaled and slowed down, so did the truck. Panic crept up my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed, stalked by this relentless trucker. I needed help, so I called 911, explaining my situation to the operator. She assured me that a patrol car was on its way and advised me to drive to the nearest police station. As I followed her instructions, the trucker's behavior grew even more erratic. He started flashing his high beams, honking loudly, and veering dangerously close to my car. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The dispatcher kept me on the line, trying to keep me calm. She asked for a description of the truck and the license plate number, but I was too terrified to get a clear look. My focus was on getting away from this maniac. Finally, I spotted the lights of a police station in the distance. I pulled into the parking lot, and the truck followed, screeching to a halt behind me. I was trapped, surrounded by darkness and the deafening sound of the truck's engine. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and shouted to the dispatcher that I had made it to the police station but was being blocked by the truck. She assured me that officers were on their way, and I should stay in my car. The trucker inched closer, the headlights blinding me. My heart was in my throat as I realized this person had no intention of letting me go. He revved the engine, the noise vibrating through the car. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I saw the flashing lights of a police car approaching from behind the truck. The trucker must have seen them too because he suddenly peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching, and disappeared into the night. The relief that washed over me was immense. The police officers took my statement and promised to investigate the incident. They offered to escort me home, and I accepted, grateful for their presence. As I drove the rest of the way home with a police car in front of me, I couldn't help but wonder about that trucker's intentions. What had possessed him to terrorize me on that lonely stretch of road? It was a chilling encounter that left me with a deep sense of unease and a lasting fear of late-night drives. It was a cross-country drive I'd made many times before, but this time felt different. I was visiting family I hadn't seen in years. The sun had long set when I hit the lonely stretch of highway that seemed to stretch endlessly through the desert. The only company I had was the hum of my car's engine and the occasional flicker of my headlights against the barren landscape. I was lost in thought, reminiscing about the past and the reasons I had stayed away for so long. It was late, and I was tired, but I was determined to reach my destination by morning. That determination waned, however, when I noticed the car behind me. It had been tailing me for miles, its headlights never wavering from my rearview mirror. At first, I brushed it off as a fellow traveler on the same route, but as the miles passed, unease settled in. The car's windows were heavily tinted, making it impossible to see inside. I decided to switch lanes, hoping the driver would pass me. But every time I changed lanes, the car followed suit. Panic started to creep in, and I began to wonder if this was more than just a coincidence. I needed to put some distance between us, so I pressed harder on the gas pedal. As the speedometer needle crept up, the other car matched my pace. No matter how fast I went, it clung to me like a shadow. Fear began to gnaw at me, and I frantically scanned the road ahead for any sign of help. I dialed 911, my voice trembling as I explained the situation to the operator. She assured me that an officer was on the way and advised me to stay on the line. But the thought of having to pull over on this desolate road, alone and vulnerable, terrified me. I continued to drive, praying for the sight of flashing police lights. The minutes dragged on like hours, and the car behind me showed no sign of letting up. Then, something even more chilling happened. A voice crackled over my car's radio, a distorted and sinister message that sent shivers down my spine. "Pull over," it hissed. "Pull over now." Terror gripped me as I realized the voice was coming from the car behind me. Who was this person, and what did they want? I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and refused to obey. The operator on the phone urged me to stay on the line and not engage with the voice. Finally, I saw the welcome sight of flashing blue and red lights approaching from behind. The police officer pulled up beside me, and I rolled down my window, explaining the nightmarish situation. The officer nodded and instructed me to follow him to the nearest police station. As we pulled away, the car that had been tailing me peeled off onto a side road and vanished into the darkness. Relief washed over me, but the encounter haunted my thoughts. Who was that person, and why had they singled me out on that deserted highway? At the police station, I gave a statement, describing the car and the voice that had come over the radio. The officer assured me they would investigate, but he also cautioned that it might be difficult to track down the mysterious driver. The rest of my journey was spent with a sense of unease, glancing over my shoulder and wondering if I was being watched. I reached my family's home, grateful for their warm embrace, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped a nightmare on that lonely stretch of highway. To this day, the memory of that chilling encounter lingers, a stark reminder that darkness can lurk in the most unexpected places, even on the open road.